Okay, we're going to go ahead and continue to focus on looking at the Athenian Acropolis. And if you remember from yesterday, we talked about how all of the different temples and most of the structures on top of the Acropolis are all dedicated to Athena, who's the patron goddess of Athens. And so remember that this is placed on a sacred hill next to the Agora. So inside the cella, there would have been a colossal sculpture of her. You can really see based on this contextual image on the right side, how large it would be compared to the average person. So she would have been monumental, and she would have been facing one of the two entrances to the Parthenon. And so she would have been placed in the cella here, and she would have looked out at the harbor, being the protector for the city. The actual entranceway would have been on this back side here, and you would walk around the colonnades and see all the beautiful sculptures and reliefs on the outside and the inside before you would actually enter into the Parthenon itself. So keep in mind that the Parthenon is designed based on mathematical ratios. And so if you get a moment, go ahead and check out this Math Magic Land with Donald Duck around 6:58 to about 13 minutes to see how mathematics related to the construction of the Parthenon and the Greeks' ideal of rationalism. So when it comes to the Parthenon, it is a post and lintel construction. However, it's not completely at a 90-degree angle. It is a massive temple dedicated to Athena, but it actually angles slightly in to make it seem even bigger than it actually is. So it is not necessarily exactly the golden ratio in proportion, but they did use a mathematical equation to figure out how to like the different ratios for the facade. So the width of it compared to the depth compared to the height. And then the front side, as you saw with Math Magic Land, the decorations, the pediments, the individual cells of the metopes, the columns, all could really be based on that golden ratio. You can see how the style of the Greeks have changed and evolved. This is a much earlier temple in Italy at Parthenon, where you can see these Doric columns are much more wide and they are much more thin and elegant when it comes to the Parthenon. So there's a different set of ratios that are developed in the classical time. The next structure we're going to look at is the Erecthion by Memicles. You do not have an image of this in the 250, but it is in your plan, so you could circle it right here. And so this structure has many different buildings and shrines, all dedicated to Athena. So you can see from this illustration, it's not your typical rectilinear temple. It is the spot of the contest where Poseidon and Athena decided, or at least the citizens of Athens decided who would be the patron god of Athens. And so Erecthius was actually the judge, and that's where the name Erecthion actually comes from. So he was the god who judged the contest for the people of Athens. So Poseidon took a trident and he struck it on a rock, and out of that rock came water. And that would be really important to the Athenians because it was an extremely dry climate. However, Athena decided to make an olive tree come out of the dry earth, and the olive oil could be traded. It was worth its weight in gold at the time, and so it would bring great wealth and prosperity to Athens. So Erecthius decided for the people of Athens that olive oil was much more important rather than water. And so Athena was chosen to be the patron goddess. When you go to the Erecthion today, you'll still see a rock inside the structure, kind of in this little enclosure with a mark in it denoting where the trident struck it, and out came the water. And there's also an olive tree planted in that area. Inside this structure, besides having different shrines to Athena, there would have also been storage for the different objects used for the procession in the Panthetic festival, that birthday of Athena. So here you can see the divisions of these different temples. Here's where the spring and the trident marks are. So it's kind of central in the temple itself. And then when you look at the structure, can you tell the order? Look at the columns. Notice how it has those scrolls, what we call volutes, and it has a base. So that tells us that it must be in Ionic order. And then on the south side, there's this porch. So on the porch here, there's what we call Curatids. If you notice carefully, they have their classical proportions and the classical drapery with the wet fabric. But more importantly, there's 6 figures. 3 on one side are identical. The other 3 are identical. And if you notice the contrapposto, here we have the right knee forward, and over here we have the left knee forward. There's perfect symmetry and order in this Caryatid, using humans to represent columns or as the function of columns. So this is what they look like today. They're inside the Acropolis Museum at the foot of the hill. And so what are you going to do right now is you're going to be divided into groups, and there's going to be a link that you can get from the agenda. We're going to focus on the themes of how the different sculptures and structures relate to Athenian pride, military strength, and political significance, as well as the struggle of balance and order. So we'll go over these things later.